Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name's Ryan, or RGR Productions, and today I'm going to be showing you how I made my Part 2 build on my Captain Rex Phase 2 armor, which is the chest plate. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing, because it greatly motivates me to make more videos like these. Alright, let's get into the build. The first thing I did for this chest plate build is I took 2 pieces of cardboard and I looked at my best image that I had from the Phase 2 armor. And it's actually from Galactic Armor's shop. He has really good reference images there. I don't buy his products, but they're really nice reference images. So if you're looking for reference images, go head over there. And maybe also buy them too, because his products are great. It's pretty difficult to get a good curve on it, because what you have to do is you have to curve the top flaps where those 2 kind of straps go across on the shoulders, but you also have to curve it across so it can actually conform to the shape of your chest. So that was one thing that was a little difficult to do. And then one thing I did is I took another big piece of cardboard and I glued it on underneath that main chest plate piece that I just started. And that chest plate piece was glued on at an angle. So if you look at it from the side, it's not exactly vertical, it's a little bit sideways. And then what I started doing is filling in that gap where all the geometric pieces are. And I started in the little middle area where all those short ones are, because that's very easy. And in some of these shots, you can see some support pieces that I put underneath the abs. And that was because they just needed to sit at a certain height above the chest. So basically, those won't be seen later on. You don't have to do them, but they're nice, and I always like to do supports because it makes things stronger. Wrapping that geometric edge around the whole bottom was fairly straightforward. All I had to do was just hold up a piece of cardboard and kind of just guess the shape that the chest would have. And then once you have that, you can hold it up and trace the shape of the abs or the pecs. And then you can trace that out, cut it out, and glue it on. And obviously make sure to trace out 2 so you can do it on both sides. Obviously the templates for these will be on my Etsy store. It's just they're not going to be coming for a long time because I'm breaking this up into like a 10-part series. That's just my estimate, where I'm doing like chest plate one day, and then arms, and then like torso, legs, shins, and then pauldron, guns, and stuff like that. So this is going to take me a long time, but I'm going to try to upload like once a week just to make it fast. The next thing I did was add those little 2 groove panels. So for these 2 little hash marks that are on this left side of the main chest area, I want to show you guys this cool technique where basically what needs to be done is this part needs to be removed, and then you need to insert another piece of cardboard in it so it's kind of indented. So what you got to do is locate where these parts are, and then you just make an incision all the way around the edge. And then you should end up being able to remove a piece of cardboard that looks something like this. You can see it's pretty small, and actually what you can go ahead and do is you can, after you removed it, just crunch down the cardboard inside of that gap. And then either what you can do is, if you're happy with how it looks, like if there's no extra corrugation on the inside, you can just leave it like that, which is what I'm going to do. But if you don't like what it looks like, you can just take another piece of cardboard, or even that piece you cut off, and insert it on the inside edge. And then you just want to repeat that for the bottom edge. So again, there's the bottom one. You can just peel off this piece of cardboard, and then just crunch down this cardboard on the edge. And you can see they're actually deep inside of it, they're not just on the surface. So, now that I'm happy with that, yeah, that's a cool technique that you can implement wherever you want, like on panel lines or stuff like that, or just tiny little details that need to be done. So, now the next thing I'm going to do is kind of fill out the back. So I'm going to cut out a similar size piece of cardboard to this, and then I'm just going to put it on the back, and then I'll work up from there. Kind of do the upper back area, and then the straps will also be interesting to do. I have a cool technique planned for that. And then obviously in the next video, I'm going to work on the arms. So it's going to be the shoulders, biceps, elbows, and the forearms, as well as the hand plates. So yeah, hopefully you guys like how I'm going to break up this series. Instead of just doing it in all one main video, I'm trying to upload more often and more in-depth. So I'll just do like parts, and at the very end I'll do painting the whole thing so I can show you how to do that. So yeah, let's move on. Now after doing those hash marks, I took a big piece of cardboard that was the same height as the front piece, and I curved it up, and I had someone help me trace it out to the right size. What I did is I curved it, then I held it in place underneath the front plate so they were overlapping, and then I had one of my family members trace it out so I'd get the correct size. Make sure that once you're gluing this back panel on, the main huge back piece that you've mirrored in the middle, that on either end you leave a significant gap. Because if you look at a reference image, there is a gap at the sides. You could even make it a little bit more extreme than this one. So now what I'm going to work on is the little upper back area. So that upper back area that's going to be on here, it's kind of just going to attach right in this area right here, and then it's going to go up about this high, and then it's going to have the same sort of flaps that these do, and it's just going to connect, and it's going to be about this much of a gap along the top edge. So I'll go ahead and cut to that time lapse, and then I'll be back once I have it almost ready. So the bottom edge of this back panel I had right now was kind of curving at an angle, and what I wanted to do was make it about flat if you look at it from sideways. So the way I went around that was cutting a bunch of gaps inside of it, and this was very straightforward. All I did was just go like every 2 inches, and I just cut a gap that was about a 1/4 inch wide, and it went down like 3 or 4 inches. And then I just went along the whole back piece and glued those edges together. Make sure to take your time with this because you don't want to make these seams pop open later on. Just make sure to put a bunch of glue on the inside so they'll eventually stay in place. I worked my way from one end to the other. It doesn't matter which direction you do, just make sure that they're both supported and strong. Then the next thing I did was start working on the upper back area. So now you might be wondering, how do you close up the edge? So basically what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to kind of create a shelf that can hold a piece of Velcro over the edge. So basically you need a thin piece of cardboard that's about this thick, and it goes on here. And then you need to put another piece of cardboard across, and then that's something that you can attach the Velcro to. So basically, just take a piece of cardboard and cut it kind of like this. And you can see that this would normally be about as thick as a 2 stack of Velcro. And then what you do is you just apply some glue to the back and glue it onto the inside of there. And then you want to cut another piece of cardboard that is just about twice as thick. So something like this, maybe more, maybe less, it just depends on what you're going for. And then you line it up with the edge, and you just trim what you don't need. So I don't need about this much of the piece. Make sure to only put glue on about half of the piece, and then you should be good. And then you can see now that it's glued on, it fits pretty nicely. So I'm not going to add the Velcro till later, but now what I'm going to work on is this upper back area. So I'm going to use this piece of cardboard, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. The way I was able to work out this upper back area is I took that main chest plate piece that I had from the front, and I just took that template piece and I chopped off the bottom half and then changed the top angle a little bit just to make it a little bit better, because obviously the gap where the neck goes is a lot smaller on the back compared to the front. And then what I did is I started working on those flaps that go on the top, and I did this in an interesting way. I took one piece of cardboard it wasn't exactly a rectangle, it was kind of curved on one edge, and I glued that on one side. And then I brought it all the way back to the edge, and this is where it's going to be Velcroed, so you don't need to glue it yet. And then I took that same piece, but with rounded off corners, and I glued that on the top edge, and they were glued on in the middle. And I just took that and glued it at the back. But the back, you want to glue it to Velcro. You don't want to glue it to the piece, or else you're never going to be able to put this on. That's very important. I had to extend the top area by a little bit. You can see there, I covered it up with some thin cardboard. And the way you get thin cardboard is you just take a piece of regular cardboard, and then you peel off the top edge to reveal the super thin, less than a millimeter layer, which is really nice to use. And then the next thing I started doing was those little details on top of those shoulder straps. And the way I went about this is I took a bunch of thin pieces of cardboard, like maybe 3 millimeters wide, and I cut out like 15 of them, and I just glued them horizontally across that whole top strip. And then from the gap to gap, I took some super thin pieces of cardboard and glued them the opposite direction, so they were perpendicular to the other ones. And this gives it a really nice effect, and I think it looks really nice. And then once I had this done, I mirrored it on the other side. And you want to make sure that you get these pretty symmetrical, because if one of them is slightly higher than the other one, you'll be able to tell and it'll look really off. That's one of the big kickers with one of these projects. The next thing I started doing was working on the main back area. Now this is pretty similar to my Commander Wolf armor. It's basically just a rectangle, and you can see I messed up on the first one. I cut the circles out too wonky. It's just a big rectangle. I think mine's like 6 inches by 3.5 to 4 inches. And I just cut 4 circles. I used a tape roll, and I traced the inside diameter of that. And then I took some more and just cut out some rectangles and then some ovals, some extended ovals on the edges. And this gives it the really nice effect. Just make sure to put a backing plate on the backside so you can't put your finger through there. It just won't look right. And what you have to do is just wrap pieces of cardboard around the edges.
So you see these pieces at the top that I just added on? The only way to detach them is at the back. You can't do it at the front because the top is glued on there and the bottom is also glued on the inside. But as a matter of fact, what you can do is remove it at the back because this is overlapping at the top and then the bottom is velcroed on. So that's what I did on both sides, and with that done, that's it for the whole chest plate. Also, this is velcroed at the other side as well. So now, let's cut to the outro.
And that's the end of part 2 in how to make my Phase 2 Captain Rex armor. In the next video, I'll be outlining the shoulders, the biceps, the elbows, the forearms, and the hand plates. So stay tuned for that. They'll probably be coming out in a week and a half or so. If you have any suggestions for future helmets I should make, please leave them in the comments down below. This has been RJR Productions, signing off. Till next time.